Good evening and Erev Tov, and good evening, everyone. We're in the Zera Shimshon and Parsha's Ki Tisa. We are doing Os Beis this evening, and we know that when we look at the work that was done in the Mishkan, one of the key personalities was Betzalel, and the Zera Shimshon in this piece is going to talk about Betzalel and how he was appointed. So let's take a look. He's going to start with a Gemara in Masechta Brachos. It says as follows: Brachos Perek Tes, the ninth Perek. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Ein ma'amidin parnas al hatzibor ela im kein nimlochen betzibor," unless you first consult with the congregation. So Rabbi Yitzchak is stating a general rule that we want to appoint a leader over a group of people. We have to get the people, talk to them, let them know about it first, get their feeling about it first, and consult with them. Shenemar, as the Torah says, Re'u kara Hashem. I'll read that whole pasuk. It says, this is actually Shmos Perek Lamed Hey Pasuk Lamed. The pasuk that the Gemara is quoting says, Vayomer Moshe el Bnei Yisrael. Moshe said to Bnei Yisrael, Re'u kara Hashem b'shem Betzalel ben Uri ben Chor l'matei Yehuda. See that Hashem has called to Betzalel by name, has called out by name Betzalel ben Uri ben Chor l'matei Yehuda of the tribe of Yehuda. So from that pasuk, Rabbi Yitzchak concludes that was Moshe not just telling Bnei Yisrael that Betzalel had been appointed, but discussing it with them first and letting them know that this is something that Hashem wanted to do. Amar lo, so the Gemara continues, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Hagun alecha Betzalel, is Betzalel an appropriate choice from your perspective? Amar lo, so Moshe said back to Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, if you, Hashem, feel that Betzalel is the appropriate choice, so from my opinion, how much more so? I will certainly agree. Amar lo, so Hashem said back to Moshe, Afal pichen, even so, even though that's how you feel, lechem or lahem liyisrael, go and mention this to Klal Yisrael. Holach v'amar lahem, so Moshe went and said to Bnei Yisrael, Hagun aleichem Betzalel, is Betzalel an appropriate choice from your perspective to be in charge of the Mishkan project? Amrulo, they said to him, Im lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lefanecha Hagun, if to Hashem and to you, Moshe Rabbeinu, this is an appropriate choice, he's an appropriate choice, lefanenu lo kolshkein, and then to us, how much more so? So there was no, as you see from this piece of Gemara and Brachos, there was no problem getting approval for Betzalel. But Rabbi Yitzchak simply wants to learn and to teach as a general rule that the same way Hashem consulted with Moshe Rabbeinu and asked Moshe Rabbeinu to consult with Bnei Yisrael about the choice, we should learn from that kind of a derech erah. It's a general way of operating that whenever we're going to appoint a leader to a project or a leader over a group of people, to discuss it with the group of people first. It's the Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak and the Gemara don't say that if it has to be unanimous and if there's someone who disagrees that they can't do it, but it means that we should get people's feeling about the subject first before moving ahead. So Hiksha, in the second paragraph, Hiksha Zera B'Yorech, in the sefer Zera B'Yorech, a question is asked. Lama asa shtei she'elos. Why were two questions posed? Why did Hashem want two questions to be asked? Mitchila, lishol mitchila, to ask at first, im hagun al Moshe, if Moshe found it inappropriate, if Moshe found Betzalel to be an appropriate choice. V'achar kach im hu hagun al Yisrael, and afterwards to ask if Bnei Yisrael found Betzalel to be an appropriate choice. Umatzarich she'ela. Why was this seemingly extra question, meaning the one to Moshe, why was it asked? Ki Tisa shelo yeh hagun al Moshe. And what would have happened if Moshe would not have thought the choice was appropriate? Im lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu hagun, if Hashem had decided Betzalel was the right choice, ubishlama im hatzibor nimlach mishum shein ma'amidim parnas al hatzibor ela im kein nimlach and betzibor. And okay, fine, if according to this rule, if there's a rule that we're supposed to, Hashem would want to teach that you're supposed to consult with the congregation before appointing a leader over them. So then Hashem would have had to consult with the people, or he would have asked Moshe to do so. Avalama nimlachi Moshe bifnei atzmo. But why did Hashem choose to ask Moshe to consult with Moshe individually first? Ad kan Lashono, here until here is a quote from the Zera Shimshon. So it's really a very straightforward question, and that is that when Rabbi Yitzchak teaches this principle about consulting with the group, he doesn't say consult with the leader of the group first and then consult with the group. He doesn't say there should be two stages of this consultation. He says the rule is when you want to appoint a leader, consult with the tzibur, consult with the group first. So the question is, why did Hashem consult first with Moshe and then ask Moshe to consult with the people? Why a two-stage process when that didn't seem to be necessary, and it's not what Rabbi Yitzchak was learning out from the incident? V'od yesh lahakshos, and we can also ask, Heichi yolif Rabbi Yitzchak mehacha? How did Rabbi Yitzchak learn from this incident? De'ein ma'amidin parnas ela imkein nimlachen b'tzibor, that we don't appoint a leader unless we consult with the people. Dilma, perhaps ba'alma ein tzarech limalech. Maybe in general, we really don't need to do such a consultation. And the fact that in this particular case of Bitzalel, Hashem found it necessary to consult with the people, Lefisha Bitzalel Hayanar. It's because Bitzalel was so young. We'll see how young he was in a moment, which is very surprising. But Bitzalel was particularly young. V'lo hayakabod hatzibor limnos alehem nar leparnas. And it would not normally be considered showing respect and honor to the congregation to appoint someone over them to be the head of this incredibly vital, holy project, who was so young, to be the leader of this project. It would not normally be respectful to appoint someone so young. How young was he? So the Zera Shimshon continues. Shelo haya ela ben yud gimel shanim. Bitzalel at this time, believe it or not, was only 13 years old. Kedamrina b'Sanhedrin perak ben sora umora, as the Gemara in Sanhedrin teaches. That happens to be, by the way, just as an aside, a very unusual Gemara. The Gemara, the most surprising thing about that Gemara is not that Bitzalel was 13 years old, even though that's shocking in its own right. It's the fact that the Gemara doesn't even start off talking about Bitzalel. It starts talking about the fact, at least the supposition, that boys as young as 8 years old at that time in history were able to father children. And in order to prove that point, the Gemara goes through different calculations to show how old people were at that time when they had children. And one of those calculations involved Bitzalel's family. And in the course of that calculation, it said, besides for the fact that one of his forebearers brought children into the world at 8 years old, it also, part of the calculation is that Bitzalel was 13 years old when he was given this job, this position as being in charge of the Mishkan. But nonetheless, for the Zera Shimshon's point, he's saying that since Bitzalel was 13 years old, that might be the reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, let me not make a rule, let me actually make an exception to the rule. Meaning, usually you don't have to consult the people when you appoint a leader, but in a case where you're going to appoint someone who's particularly young, or maybe particularly might be thought unsuitable for some other striking reason, then you should consult with the people. Perhaps that's what was going on. And the Zera Shimshon is going to strengthen that point. As we find in the Shulchan Aruch, Gabe Shliach Tzibor, regarding appointing a chazan, a Shliach Tzibor, Divo'ina Nismale Zikna. We require, the Shulchan Aruch says, that the person be old enough to have a full beard. We want someone old enough that their beard has come in. So you see that appointing an adolescent to be the Shliach Tzibor would be something that, according to the Shulchan Aruch, should not generally be done, because an adolescent, a young boy, certainly a 13-year-old, is not going to be old enough to have a beard come in. In addition, continuing, the Zera Shimshon says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, and we know the famous case of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. He was 18 years old. He was appointed to be the head of the Sanhedrin, and the Zera Shimshon quotes the Gemara in Brachos, Na'aseh lo nes, a miracle happened to him. Sheyeh nireh keben shivim shana, that overnight his appearance changed to be someone who looked like a 70-year-old man. And of course, we know the famous statement that's quoted in the Haggadah, where Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, "Harei ani keben shivim shana." It's as if I'm 70 years old. What did he mean? He means I'm not really 70 years old, but overnight my appearance changed to be like someone who's 70 years old. His hair had turned gray, his beard had turned gray. And so that's another source where we see that certain positions require someone to be older and to be of an older age. V'od yesh ledaktek b'kesher shel haksuvim. And in addition to all of this, he says we should check out the connection between the psukim in Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Beis and Pasuk Gimel. And he gives you a little excerpt from each of those psukim. Re'ei karasi b'shem B'tzalel. Hashem says to Moshe, I have chosen by name, I have called out by name B'tzalel, v'chuli, etc. And then Hashem says, Ve'emale oso ruach Elokim. I have filled him with the wisdom of Hashem and with the ruach of wisdom, with the spirit of wisdom and understanding, etc. So the Zera Shimshon says, if you look at those psukim, you'll also see something important. Nothing at that point to do with his age per se, but to do with the fact that somehow his being appointed had to do with his being filled with wisdom. And we'll see what that has to do with this whole idea that the Zera Shimshon wants to develop in a moment. But let's just pause here to understand the two questions that are in front of us. The first question that's in front of us was the one posed by the sefer Zera B'Yorech, which is, why did Hashem choose to consult first with Moshe and then have Moshe consult with the people? Why the two-stage process? That's question one. And question two is, perhaps Rabbi Yitzchak really does not have a good source to learn out the general halacha as a general rule that we should always consult with the group before we appoint a leader over the group, because the case of B'tzalel is really a very unique case and possibly should not be used to make a general rule and to generalize out to other cases. Why is it so unique? Because B'tzalel, as the Gemara in Sanhedrin states, was 13 years old, and maybe that's why Hashem said, we really better talk to the people first out of a show of honor and respect to the tzibor before we just appoint someone so young as the leader of this Mishkan project. So now the Zera Shimshon is going to take those two questions and develop a theme for us that will help us answer both of them. Aval Isa b'Shulchan Aruch, but now we can look in the Shulchan Aruch Yoredeya that says as follows: Asur la'adam lahoros bifnei Rabbo. It's forbidden for a person to teach halacha in front of his Rebbe, and we know this is a general principle. That a person should not answer questions, should not paskin shilas, should not teach if his Rebbe is present. What does it mean, Rebbe being present? Does it mean right there in the room? Does it mean in that particular city? Is there a geographical amount of distance where if your Rebbe is in that area? So the Gemara discusses all those things. The Shulchan Aruch brings down some of those details as well. But the basic idea is, the general rule is that a person should not, it's considered disrespectful for a person to teach halachas and answer halachic questions in the presence of his Rebbe. Ve'afila natilas rishus lo mahani, and even if he asks his Rebbe for permission to do so, this does not help. Im hu rabo muvha, if this Rebbe is his main Rebbe. In other words, this is if with this Rebbe he has a bond of, let's say, spending years with him and learning from him, and he learned most of what he knows, he learned from this Rebbe. In that case, it doesn't even help if he asks his Rebbe for rishus and his Rebbe gives him rishus. It's still forbidden for him to teach halachas in the halacha in the presence of his Rebbe. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Avolim ein rov chachmaso mimenu. But if the person did not receive most of his wisdom from this particular Rebbe, in other words, let's imagine a person has studied under several different Rebbeim, or maybe even two Rebbeim, but the person that he's concerned about not teaching in front of him, that person is not someone who taught him most of the chachma that he has and most of the wisdom that he has. Then the Zera Shimshon says, mashma, it implies, Hassam over there in the Shulchan Aruch, the netilas rishus mahani, that getting permission from the Rebbe will help. And if the Rebbe says it's okay, then the student can teach. In other words, when it's not his Rebbe Muvhak, when it's not someone who taught him most of what he knows, then he could ask the Rebbe for permission, and then it makes it permissible for him to teach, even in the presence of his Rebbe, v'ayin sham b'poskim, and look there in the poskim. So now the Zera Shimshon says, knowing that halachic context, let's continue. V'im kein Moshe hayarabo muvhak she'Bitzalel. If so, if keeping that halach in mind, we need to realize that Moshe was considered the Rebbe Muvhak of Bitzalel. Moshe hayaharav Muvhak shel Yisrael. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu was, by definition, the Rebbe Muvhak of all of Klal Yisrael, meaning everything that they knew about Torah, they received through Moshe Rabbeinu. So every member of Klal Yisrael was obligated to consider Moshe Rabbeinu as their Rebbe Muvhak. And therefore, Bitzalel really should not have been allowed to take over a project which required him to be a leader and to teach halachos and to give people instructions about halachic matters, which he would have needed to do constantly in the Mishkan project in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu was his Rebbe Muvhak. Ve'af natilas rishus mi-Moshe lo havi mahani le. And according to what we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, even if Moshe Rabbeinu had said to him, Bitzalel, it's okay, I want you to do this. Hashem told me to appoint you, and I'm appointing you, and I'm giving you permission. I'm not just giving you permission, I'm telling you, you're the leader of this project. Nonetheless, lo mahani le, it wouldn't help, and it should have been forbidden for Bitzalel to take over the project. V'lachein amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe. Therefore, Hashem said to Moshe, Re'ei karasi b'shem Bitzalel. Look, now I have called out Bitzalel, v'amale oso, and I have filled him with wisdom, and I have filled him with tefuna, I filled him with understanding, v'chule, etc. Klomar, this means to say, achshav she'ani milesi oso ruach chochma u'savuna. Now that I, Hashem says, have filled him with wisdom and with understanding, Im kain ein rov chachmaso mimcha. No longer is the majority of his knowledge from you, Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, v'im ata titein lo rishus lahoros, if you will give him permission to teach halacha, yochol lahoros, he will be able to teach halachas, he will be able to teach, because you, in this particular case of Bitzalel, you're not his Rebbe Muvhak. You might be the Rebbe Muvhak. You are the Rebbe Muvhak, Moshe, to everyone else, but I have filled, that's the significance of that pasuk, I have filled Bitzalel with wisdom and with tevuna and understanding, Hashem says, and therefore I have given him the majority of his knowledge and his understanding, and therefore, since you're not his Rebbe Muvhak, if you give him permission, he will be allowed to take over the Mishkan project, to direct it, and to teach halachas. And after Moshe gave Bitzalel permission, lo hayitzorach lehimalech b'Yisrael. Technically, he would not. God would not have to ask Moshe to consult with the Jewish people. V'kivan she'ra'inu she'al kol panim rotzeh limalech lahem. And when we see that Hashem still said, okay, Moshe, now I have your agreement, which means your permission for your student Bitzalel to teach in your presence. Now I want you to still consult with Bnei Yisrael. Al korchoch, we are compelled to say, tzarech lomar, we have to say, shehatam hu mipnei, that the reason is because she'ein ma'amidin parnas v'chuli, that there is a general principle that we do not appoint a ruler unless we consult with the people first. So let's pause here for a second, because the Zera Shimshon has shifted things in a very dramatic fashion to show us that the reason Hashem consulted with Moshe is not based on the Rebbe Yitzchak teaching of consulting with the congregation before appointing a leader over them. If that was the reason, then that's where the whole question came up. Why did Hashem have to consult with Moshe and the people? The rule only says consult with the people. Answer, Hashem did not consult with Moshe based on the rule of Rebbe Yitzchak and the Gemara in Bracha, in the 9th parak in Brachos, about consulting with the people before appointing a leader. That's not what was going on. What was going on was Hashem saying to Moshe, you are the Rebbe Muvhak of Bitzalel. Therefore, Bitzalel cannot take over this project, And the only way he can is because I am now filling him with wisdom and tavuna. Most of his knowledge now doesn't come from you, Moshe, it comes from me, but he still needs your reshus. So I'm asking you to give him your reshus. That is what the intention and the meaning when Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hagun alecha B'Tzalel, is B'Tzalel appropriate? Meaning, do you give B'Tzalel permission? Are you willing to give him permission to teach halacha to the people in your presence? And Moshe Rabbeinu said, yes. Then Hashem said, okay, now that he has your reshus, now please go ask the people. And that showed us the rule that Rabbi Yitzchak learned out from the incident about the importance of consulting the people before appointing a leader. And the Zera Shimshon continues. V'kivon, v'hashta, and now, leka lemeimar shenimlach pohem lefisha hayana'ar, and now we no longer should say or should raise the problem, raise the question as we did before, that maybe Hashem only wanted to consult with the people because B'Tzalel was a young lad. Since at that point Moshe had given him smicha, so to speak, Moshe had said, I'm willing to rely on him to teach halacha, Yotza Michlal Na'ar, he went out of the category of a young boy, Uva Lichlal Chacham, and B'Tzalel entered the category of being a chacham, of being a sage, of being a scholar. He was no longer considered, even though, of course, in terms of his chronological age, he was still 13 years old, but the same way Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah was transformed and was viewed as someone royally to be the head of the Sanhedrin, so too B'Tzalel now at 13 was viewed as someone with the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding to direct this Mishkan project. V'yesh kan chadash mole yoshan, and this is an example of a new barrel that's full of old wine. Usually the Gemara says that you look at an old barrel, an aged barrel, and it has aged wine in it. But sometimes you might look at a brand new barrel and they've poured aged wine in it. And that is the case with B'Tzalel. Outside he had a young appearance, but inside he was filled with the chachma, the wisdom and the understanding of a much older person. The Olav Ne'amar, and about someone like B'Tzalel, it is said, V'hadarta p'nei zaken. You should honor the face of a zaken. Usually we translate that as an elderly person, an older person. And the Gemara says, Zeh shekana chachma. Actually, zaken, its real meaning, its real intention is this person has acquired wisdom. So zaken, zeh shekana, this person has acquired wisdom, even if they're not necessarily old in age. Ve'afilu yonik v'chachim. And this applies even to someone who's young and is very wise, according to the Gemara and Masechta Kedushin. Just as a side note, it's actually a machlokas tanoim over there, whether or not we have to honor someone who is young and wise, or maybe this pasuk of Hadarta P'nei Zaken only applies to someone who is both older in years and has wisdom. That's the opinion of one of the Tanoim, but Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, no, it applies. It's the whole criteria is wisdom and knowledge. And if a person has wisdom and knowledge, even if they're young, as the Zera Shimshon quotes, afilu yonik v'chacham, even if it's a young person who is very wise, we still apply the pasuk v'hadarta p'nei zaken. And so the Zera Shimshon applies that rule to B'Tzalel, and he still was considered an appropriate leader for the people over the project. However, God wanted Moshe to consult with the people based on the rule that Rabbi Yitzchak is teaching to us in the Gemara and Brachos about always consulting with the people before appointing a leader. So now, after answering all of the questions that were posed and helping us understand what was really going on in this dialogue between Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a loose end to tie up, and the Zera Shimshon is going to do that now in this last paragraph. The Im Tomar, and if you say, Umaho ro'a shayach b'maseh hamishkan, what kind of paskening halacha, what kind of halachic decisions are relevant when it came to the maseh hamishkan? You might think the Zera Shimshon says that B'Tzalel's need for knowledge and wisdom was kind of an architectural, a technical knowledge. It had nothing to do with halacha per se. It had nothing to do with horah. It had to do with understanding how to do all of the many different kind of skills, the weaving and the carving and the carpentry and the engraving on stones, the jewelry type work, all of those different things is the wisdom they had. But that's not really horah. That doesn't mean that he would have, none of those things should have required him to have horah, the ability to paskin shilas and paskin halacha in the presence of his Rebbe. So the Zera Shimshon says, maybe you'll ask, what does horah even have to do with the situation of Betzalel? Yesh lomar, we can say, shahari matzinu, that we find sheBetzalel shina mimasha amar lo Moshe, that not only did Betzalel have the ability to do horah, to make halachic decisions, but even to depart from what Moshe told him in certain situations. She ve'asa es hamishkan techila, and we see that he made the Mishkan first, even though Moshe said to him, make the Kalim first. This is based, again, as Zera Shimshon quotes, a different Gemara in Masech the Brachos. It's actually also, we've seen it in a different piece in the Zera Shimshon earlier, where he quoted the Medrash Rabbah that also brings down this Maisa. And what happens in brief is as follows. Hashem said to Moshe, when he gave the command of the Mishkan, Hashem said that first the Mishkan should be made, and then the different Kalim, the Aron and the Menorah and the Shulchan and the Mizbech, and the Kalim should be made afterwards. However, when Moshe Rabbeinu repeated this command to Betzalel and gave Betzalel his marching orders, so to speak, Moshe mentioned this we find in Parsha's Truma, last week's, 2 weeks ago, the Parsha, that Moshe said to Betzalel, make the Aron, make the Menorah, make the Shulchan, make the Kalim. And then Moshe said to him, and then make here's how to make, here are the instructions for making the Mishkan. So Betzalel at that point said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Rebbe, it seems to me that would be in reverse order, because when a person builds a home, first the person builds the structure of the home, and then they make the different, the tables, the chairs, the beds, the Kalim that have to go into the home. If you make the Kalim first, where are you going to put them? You don't want them to just leave them out and have them be vulnerable to the elements. And Hashem then says to Betzalel, according to the Gemara here in Brachos and according to the Medrash Rabbah, Moshe Rabbeinu then says to Betzalel, you're right, you're absolutely correct. Hashem did say it to me in that order. Hashem said to me, first make the Mishkan and then make the Kalim. I made a mistake when I said it to you, and I said make the Kalim first. So you see from that example that Betzalel was called upon to do horah, to make major decisions about the process of the Mishkan, not just technical decisions about how to do the carving or the weaving, but really major decisions about the halachas involved. The Ode, and another example, Moshe Tziva Sheyase Aaron Eitz Mitzupa Zahav. Moshe commanded Betzalel, when he said to make the Aaron, he said to him, make a wooden box and cover it with gold, put gold covering on it. But according to the Gemara in Maseches Yuma, V'hu Asa Shlosha Aronos, this is a famous, Rashi brings this down again in Parshas Truma, a very famous Rashi, that what Betzalel did was he made 3 boxes. He made a wooden box, and then he made an outer golden box, a bigger box, and then a smaller golden box to go inside. So what you had was a golden box inside, a wooden box on the outside, and then a bigger golden box outside of that. These 3 layers gave you wood covered in gold, so to speak, but not really, not the wood covered in gold, 3 separate boxes. That's how Betzalel constructed the Aron, and that is, again, different than what Moshe Rabbeinu described to him. So we see the Zera Shimshon says that Betzalel was called upon to do horah, to make major decisions, and even when those decisions ran counter to what Moshe Rabbeinu had told him, he still followed through and still followed the path that he understood in terms of how things needed to happen. Of course, always explaining things to Moshe, as we saw, and Moshe saying, yes, that's correct. And Moshe gave his approval to those decisions. So what we've seen, I think, if we take a step back from the whole piece, is one, we come away certainly with an understanding of an important rule, and that is that whenever someone takes a leadership role or is considered for a leadership role, it's important that not be done unilaterally and just have the people be told, this is it, this is a fait accompli, and this person is now in charge. but rather than there needs to be a consultation process, and the people need to be at least consulted about the decision. And we also see the importance of the halacha of not teaching anything, being very careful, being very medactic about not teaching halachas in front of our rebbeim, in front of our rabbis. Of course, all of us were zochet to have many different rebbeim, so it gets into the question of exactly what the Zera Shimshon talked about here, and that particular simon in Yordei and Shulchan Aruch is someone a Rebbe Muvhak, where you have certain halachas and you really shouldn't teach a halacha in front of them at all, even if they give permission, or because you have different rebbeim, perhaps that halacha, as strictly as it is said, might not apply to certain rebbeim, and if you get their permission, then you might be able to answer shilas or teach halacha, etc., in their presence, because it's not a person's Rebbe Muvhak. So very, very beautiful piece, I think, in the Zera Shimshon. I want to wish everybody a Freilichen Purim, a beautiful Purim, and a joyous holiday.